now we have the beautiful Jessica Jackson joining us right now. So I wanted to bring her on and talk to her about this amazing concept that she has and that she has launched in the Detroit area called the Copper House. So first of all, before we go into your business and this awesomeness that you've developed, tell us a little bit about your story and why the cannabis angle. Everybody has their story. We love hearing it.
Yeah, so I guess that it started in grad school, right? I was in my MBA program, and one of the assignments was like to research an industry. My sorority sister was in LA, and she had just launched a high-end carrying case to keep your cannabis safe. She was a mom, and she was sharing her story about using cannabis to cope with some anxiety. And so she launched a brand called The Apothecary and was sharing so much about, Whitney. She was sharing so
Whitney.
Yeah, she was sharing so much about the cannabis industry, and it was at the perfect time because I was researching industries that I wanted to work with. I have a background in educational access and equity advocacy. That's what my work path has been. And when I started doing research on cannabis, it kind of married, right? I wanted to transition my career out of this nonprofit educational focused area and into business, but I also wanted to have a core of justice. Like everything that I was doing in my career up until that point aligned to creating justice and creating access. And as I started researching more about, I had been a consumer of cannabis recreationally for my entire life, but I didn't realize the therapeutic benefits that I was gaining. I didn't have the language, I didn't have the capacity, and I still harbored so much shame around it. As a teacher, as someone who is in education, you're not just going to say like, yeah, the way I process my emotions sometimes is by smoking a J, right? So she started to normalize the conversation for me. And when she was sharing her story, I started doing more and more research about expungement, doing more and more research about how that affects kids, right? Imagine parents are sitting in jail and their kids are not being parented right now. And so that kind of sparked the passion in me, and that led me to have a core value. And then Michigan, I was at grad school, so I was in Delaware. In Michigan, had recreational marijuana on the ballot. And I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to move back home. My wife and I wanted to move back home. We had just gotten married. We wanted to buy a house. You can't really buy a house with the amount of debt that I have on the East Coast. And we wanted to just be back in community with our family. And so it was perfect. It kind of was serendipitous. I say that like all the time, but it literally just the moving parts happened all at the same time. And we came home, we bought a house, and the ballot passed in December, and we had our first gathering in January, and just started networking with other folks of color who might have interest in the industry. So we were kind of guided by three perspectives, right? Like this is an opportunity to develop an industry that is founded on justice, right? You're talking about freeing people, giving people equal access, giving people back their rights. This is also an opportunity to be a part of something that we don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what is possible. So you really have a ground floor opportunity. And three, you get to do, I'm an educator by heart, and I get to like educate and change minds and hearts by sharing my own story and doing those things. So not only was it about like creating a space, creating a concept, it was about being passionate by something and fueled by something meaningful. And that is what sparked my interest and keeps me going still. Because it's hard. Cannabis is also hard.
It is. And that passion just continues to drive you, and you hearing someone else's story and understanding of advocacy, and then you becoming an advocate, that's just really, it's so important, is using our voices and explaining and educating and helping people understand why we are passionate about this and why we do want to see some justice happen, So tell us about the Copper House. Where is it located? A beautiful bed and breakfast. Like you started posting pictures and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly the type of things that I wanted to see in an adult use market. So go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah. So the Copper House is a prototype, right? Like this is literally my wife and I opened our doors. We got our first taste of Airbnb and the importance of having like a home away from home when we got engaged in Europe. So we were in Paris staying in an Airbnb. We were in Amsterdam staying in an Airbnb. We had stayed in people's homes and felt like a part of the community, right? So that was something that was really valuable to us. And when I pitched the idea to my wife, because first I had to win over my wife to open the doors to our house to stranger. I was like, this is what I want to do. We have spare space now. I would like to have a bigger space. That is probably the biggest barrier right now is I'm overbooked all the time. I'm having to tell people no constantly. And I wish that I had more room. We're operating out of our home. We're in Northwest Detroit off of Livernois and 7 Mile, which is the largest Black-owned business corridor in Detroit. So in addition to being able to support kind of the cannabis industry and adult use retail centers that are not in Detroit yet, we're releasing the ordinance Monday. Stay tuned. We are also able to support a lot of Black-owned businesses with restaurants, with shopping, with things like that. So we're in Northwest Detroit. We're in a colonial. We have 1 bedroom that sleeps 2 right now. And then we also have been doing with COVID something called the garden parties. So that's the background back here. You'll see we've had garden parties all summer where folks can kind of interact with some cannabis infusion chefs, have an experience and chill. And really our concept is based on creating home away from home for people and making safe, welcoming environments for folks to try something new. Q, who is Anquinette Sarfo, she is a former Fox 2 News anchor, launched Curiosity out of the Copper House. And she was convening about 20 women every month in our space. And a lot of them were they were bringing their moms with them so that they can come and try things. So it was just like a safe space for people to try hitting a dab, right? Like they had never done these things and learn about hitting a volcano and learn about like the difference between vaping and use. So there's opportunity for education out of the space as well, and exposure and destigmatization.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, like from check-in to check-out, what does a stay at the Copper House look like?
Yeah, it's different for everyone. So I would say we have probably 4 different types of guests, right? We have the travelers. Well, most of our travelers are coming from Ohio or coming from Indiana, and they're coming sometimes for events. Sometimes they're coming just to stay. So you would book on Bud and Breakfast. It's a website, a hosting website similar to Airbnb. They've trademarked it. We were the first listing in Detroit in 2019. And you book via there for an overnight stay. And once you book, you'll get a whole slew of information about what the rules are, what are the things, what are the expectations. You come in, you get your key code, you have full access to the entire home, including all of the dishes, the cutlery, and things like that. But an overnight booking is only for 2 guests. And when you check in, you can get your room key. You have a key to your room. And most of the guests end up, we have Lantern now. You can order delivery. You can also bring your own cannabis. You can go to any other dispensary. I'm looking for partners if anybody wants to partner. And then they can consume anywhere. So anywhere you can smoke in my house. I smoke anywhere in my house. And you can also book with some of our preferred vendors. So we have a list of preferred vendors. So we've had massage therapists come out and facilitate romantic evenings for folks. We've had caterers come and do infused cooking. We've had poets. We've had sound bath meditation. Anything that you can think of, we can create the experience for you. But the guest is the overnight guest is the two guest party. We also have an intimate gathering package, and that one has been really common for birthday parties. So someone might book the space for about 5 hours to have an infused dinner and maybe stay the night afterwards, but they're going to have more guests in the space than the 2 that are staying the night, right? And that one we usually book. We're working on building our website right now, but you would book that through our own process. And then we can also facilitate any type of experience that you want. And then we also have a larger party package, which is up to 30 people, and we can create pod experiences throughout the space. So at one, we had the takeoff here, or we just recently had queer expression. So in every area in the space, so outside we have a fire pit. We had Sozo companies come out and they presented about terpenes and shared educational information about terpenes. We had a collage facilitator teaching about art therapy. We had a chef teaching about making infused oil and also making a bruschetta. And then we had a writing workshop and a photography session. And so every space was kind of activated and people had different experiences that they could kind of go through. And that package is also booked through our website. And then the fourth is content producer. So I also am COO of Loud Social, which is a content marketing firm for cannabis related companies. And a lot of folks just book the space because it is aesthetic, because it is pretty, and because you can smoke, to produce lifestyle photo shoots for cannabis companies. So we have a package of about 3 hours that you can come in and rent the space and take photos of models, photos of your community, and just produce content. So those are kind of like the 4 different experiences and packages that we're offering right now.
I love it. And you said that you're quite busy. You have to turn away people. When is the next free booking?
We're booked on the weekends until December. So the next free booking is the second week in December. But we do have more flexibility during the week and it's cheaper during the week. So if you're looking to travel, you can come during the week. Yeah.
And by the way, that's the key when booking your travel. That during the week you get the better rates, but we travel on the weekends. What has been your biggest challenge with your business? I mean, I think all of us can agree owning a business can be quite a challenge in its own. So what has been the biggest challenge that you faced?
I think it's more like a personal challenge, like things that I need to navigate and get through. It's scary to like navigate an unknown space. And also to like normalize what I'm doing. Like I had to tell my family I'm allowing people cannabis use is not normal in my family. It's not normalized and accepted. So I think that a lot of challenges for me have been personal. I've lost jobs because of my involvement in cannabis. Like there are lots of things that I've had to overcome, but also I'm having people in my home. And so, which is actually pretty, like I come from a residential hospitality background as well. So like that is something that's really exciting for me. Not so exciting for my wife all the time. But also that makes me anxious, right? Like I have to be prepared to host. When you're hosting people in your home, you're cleaning. I'm cleaning my house constantly. I'm working constantly. I'm working constantly. That probably, but I like the connections that I need to make, I have made in my living room. And that I think is powerful and motivating for myself.
So what are the long-term goals for the Copper House?
I would like more capacity, right? So we're right now not turning folks away a lot. And I would like to be able to build a larger space with someone with community. And that probably is the next iteration. Right now, we're working on a renovation in our basement, which will have a 1,000 square foot studio space that's for rent, which will allow for up to 8 guests.